Hey y'all, it's Sarah, and I thought I would come back on and do a quick update about all of the nutrition and supplement support that I've had and been going through for the past couple of years because I'm in a different place with it. And I think it's important to talk about, I don't think mistakes is the right word, but maybe missteps that you can make on a journey like this. So, to back up, 2 years ago when I first started having these chronic health issues, I went to the things that I knew to be true. So for me, I had assumed I had IBS for a long time, and one of the diets that one can use on IBS is called the low FODMAP diet, and this looks at foods that have certain fermentable sugars, and you reduce that to reduce gastrointestinal distress. I've loosely followed some version of the FODMAP for many years now, and it's not very intuitive in that you avoid things like onions and garlic and broccoli and a lot of legumes. There's a great app that I have on my phone for this. So I thought, okay, I'll try this. I also there are certain diets when you have gastrointestinal distress that doctors would recommend. And this is really basic stuff though, y'all. It's things like when you're sick, you might know about the brat diet. So bananas, rice, applesauce, tea and toast. Or another variation of this is a low fiber, low residue diet. So these are just things that aren't going to irritate your gut. So not eating spicy foods, eating plain foods. What had happened though in a year or so of trying to be on these more basic food plans, I just wasn't getting any traction. And I was worried because I thought as I'm trying to figure these things out medically, how am I supporting my body, getting nutrients, and feeling good? So last fall is when I decided to start working with my nutritionist. I started saying that because I always want to say nutritionalist, but that is not correct. And she's a registered dietitian, was recommended to me. And there was basically a whole protocol to go through just to identify what foods were causing me problems and how it was really useful in the beginning to get some recipes of different foods that I didn't know how to cook, or that not that I didn't know how to cook, but I hadn't considered would be supportive. So I've talked about this before, and it's this way that naturopathic or holistic medicine, allopathic or traditional Western medicine sort of collide. And it's this dynamic that would look like this. If I went to my gastroenterologist and said, hey, Dr. B, what should I be eating? I would get a one-page handout on the low fiber, low residue diet or on the FODMAP diet. And that was fine, but I already knew that information. And maybe some folks don't, but I had done some basic research and I knew a lot of that stuff. If I went to my registered dietitian, then it was a very intense set of things to follow. But it also came with a lot of specifics. So here's 15 recipes that are straightforward and easy for you to cook that are going to be easy on your gut. Or like, here are the parameters of different diets. So I've probably been on 4 different diets in the way of certain foods are in and out because they are, in theory, aggravating symptoms in working with my nutritionist. So that's great. But let me tell you where I did not advocate well for myself and where this kind of went. It looks like a right turn. That's a left turn. So one of the challenges with naturopathic medicine, holistic medicine, is that they tend to look at markers or symptoms or signals, or you use the word, that are not accepted by the medical establishment. So when you go to see an allopathic doctor, an allopathic, like, or hospitalist is the negative word that naturopaths will use. So when I go to see my doctor, I go to a doctor's office, I check in, I'm probably waiting for a little while, that when I get, kind of vitals taken, and then I might have 15 minutes with my doctor. I actually have really good doctors, so I tend to get 20 to 30 minutes with a doctor. That's not the case. Sometimes you only get a very quick checkup. Sometimes it can feel rushed, sometimes it can feel impersonal. And so not everyone thrives in that environment. And I'm saying this as someone who has great doctors, who has great health insurance, because America, the country that I live in, decides that it's not a basic human right to get healthcare. Anyway, it's a very different path if you work with a lot of naturopathic providers all of my appointments with my nutritionist are at least an hour. The intake call was 90 minutes. It's also similar from what I understand of a lot of naturopathic practitioners. The amount of case history that they take in about you is huge. It's a lot of information that you share. And then it's very personalized. So you're getting asked a lot of questions in the appointments. You feel like this is being tailored to you specifically. And then my nutritionist had recommended a lot of different things, different tests that weren't offered by my doctor. And this is where it's really tough, because one of those tests was the first one that caught my liver enzyme problem. And so my RDN will keep saying, I can't diagnose, but I do feel like a lot of what she was trying to do is diagnose problems that I have. So a great example of this is SIBO. We don't know if I had SIBO, small intestine bacterial overgrowth. I think that I did. I took based on how I was feeling, she advised me on what to ask for. So I was able to go to my practitioner and ask for a test for SIBO. We treated it. I felt a lot better. So that's great. However, for some reason, she still thinks I have SIBO. She still thinks I'm a celiac, which all of these tests don't. So here's where I am right now. I'm standing between these practitioners. And yes, I feel great that she's uncovered some things, or basically given me avenues to explore. But at some point, I'm exhausted because I'm so sick of looking for avenues. All of the markers that my whole group of physicians, I have 4 now, all 4 physicians are feeling good about my treatment and where it's going. And yet I hear the voice over here that says there's more to explore. There's no to explore. We're not done. So I'm through my package of sessions with my dietitian and had said I need to take a break. Because this is the challenge, is that a big part of this experience has been learning to trust my body and listen to my body. And I don't mean that can go to the dark side real quick. But for example, when I was dealing with the microscopic colitis, saying, well, I think my physician saying, I think you're better, and saying, I still don't feel right. But at some point, they can only do so many tests. And I can understand if you feel unfulfilled, you might look outside of traditional medicine to say, what is it going to be? But I don't understand how I can feel better than I have in 2 years. Like, I'm feeling like I did before all of this started. And someone who's not a doctor thinks I have candida, thinks I have SIBO again, thinks I'm probably a celiac. Here's all of these other deficiencies that you have. And I'm here to say that I think it's a racket. I feel so torn because I have a lot of gratitude to my RDN. She's given me a lot of actionable stuff. She's given me a lot of different things that I can use to check in with myself, to see what type of symptoms I have, to rate my quality of life. So she's helped me build that awareness. But I don't think I'm suffering from mold toxicity in my house. I don't think I have extra toxin exposure. The proportion at which I'm noticing, the more I learn about a naturopathic way of looking at things, like I just don't think that's the case. And it's hard because I'm at this point where I feel that my nutritionist is being very pushy, because in her mind, let's say I don't even describe malintent. I really do think she believes this. I really think she's a helpful person at heart. I really think she's trying to do her best. But in her protocol chart, we're not done with it yet from her perspective. We need more sessions. We need to keep going. And a cynic could say, well, she just wants more money. Sure, maybe. But I actually believe that she's trying to be helpful. And I actually believe that she wants me to feel better. But we're at this point where I say, I do feel better. And yet she's still pushing. So I've sent multiple messages saying, hey, thank you so much. Because I don't want to undervalue the work that we've done, but to say, like, I need a break and I'll let you know if I'm ready to re-engage. And yeah, it's just a really odd dynamic. So why am I sharing this? I'm sharing this because it's easy to get caught up in things that don't have scientific backing. when I started to have these doubts or questions about these things, I started researching. I kept asking my physicians for more information. My husband reads PubMed and all these different things for fun. And these practices, they're not necessarily bad, but we don't know that they work. And this is the other challenge with diet. There's a lot that we don't know about food. Research in nutrition is really at a very high macronutrient type level. And unless you're having an allergic response, like anaphylactic shock to certain foods, or an immune response, like people have in celiac, there's just not a lot that we know. So I sit here and I ask myself, well, what do I do? And I think what it comes down to, if I've learned nothing these 2 years, is to trust my own body and to listen and say, okay, well, what is that? Now I know I have this broader experience of feeling different ways. I know what those things felt like. I know I can see how my sleep or my mood or different symptoms are impacting me, to be able to say, okay, there's a certain threshold I can set for myself and say, once these things are starting to be true, I'm going to think about something different. But it's just, I think people think it's scientific or that it's based on data, but it's not. If there's not enough data, there's not enough knowledge to say that that's the case. Okay, so this turned out to be longer than I thought, but I just wanted to send a lot of love and care out to folks who are experiencing anything like this in chronic illness, because again, especially if you've had tough interactions with doctors and people in the medical community, I absolutely understand why a naturopathic, holistic, different way of looking at it, it just feels good. You really feel like you have somebody in your corner. It feels like you have a coach who's there helping you. And when it comes down to it, she wants to do different things for my liver. And that goes against what my hepatologist is saying. And this is like, I love that she's done her work on nutrition. She went to school for 4 years to become an RDN. This guy was in medical school and fellowship and all this stuff for 15 years. So like when it comes to the liver, he's the expert. And I'm reminding myself, if I don't trust my practitioner, my doctor, I need to find a different doctor. That doesn't mean that I need to leave medicine. And again, you can go different ways, but the thing that's, I think, it is a lot of money, time, and energy going down that route. It is, I think, actually feeding things in me that are not healthy. For me, food diaries make me obsess about food. I stopped tracking my steps a few years ago because that went to an unhealthy place. So knowing I've got principles, I have new knowledge, which I am thankful for, and I paid a lot of money for. Like, don't worry, she got paid. But now I need to focus on some of the other components of my healing. And a lot of that is just being able to feel a little bit more free to say, my numbers are looking better. I am feeling better. I'm sleeping again. My inflammation is going down. And it's not okay to have somebody act in a diagnostic role who's not qualified to be someone who's diagnosing, and that you as the patient, or she probably sees me as a patient, actually. That's what my husband said. Like, as the client, I have the opportunity to say, I think I'm good. So I think I'm good. And yeah, it's just a really tough topic. And again, expressing a lot of care. If you've been through something like this, I totally understand going through it myself. I had this moment when I caught myself and thought, okay, a little too into this, like a little too into it. But the data doesn't support that, the interventions that she's suggested. Could be anything other than me paying a lot more money to get tested on all of these things and getting results that aren't reliable. Okay, so that was fun. Thanks for tuning in. Up next, I'm going to do a few short little videos just talking, especially for folks who are new to the channel or new to the diseases, the conditions that I have, just a short little thing on like, what is autoimmune hepatitis, and some questions that people have. And I also want to talk about mental health a little bit more. It's been a while since I've been talking about my anxiety, but I think it's time to talk about that a little bit again, because oh my goodness, there's been a lot of anxiety through this experience. Okay, thanks y'all. Bye.